I've been waiting my whole life for this one. Orthopedic surgeon and husband for The View host, Sonny Hostin, has been named in a federal lawsuit alleging insurance fraud.
We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're an honest scum.
What do you get when Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher basically walking, talking bar brawls and blazers both dunk on Sonny Hostin in the same week? From entirely different stages with totally different vibes and not even a courtesy lull. Text exchanged. And what if I told you this tag team takedown had nothing to do with politics? No. This time it got personal, real personal. We're talking about a neat little $450 million fraud scandal starring none other than Sonny's own husband. You know, just your standard $250 million whoopsie.
That means it's time for...
Living your life and you're feeling low. You don't know what is true. You don't know what's true. So you quick flip through the channels to watch Sonny on The View. Oh my God, the stuff she says is dumb. Where the hell they get this woman from? She's a host who's always crass and lame, with lots of nonsense to proclaim. If you want a show where people know the host is stupider than you, then set your DVR to watch Sonny Hostin on The View.
Nicely done, G.
While The View pretended the whole thing didn't exist like that one embarrassing uncle. No one mentions at family dinners Gutfeld set irony ablaze on Fox, and Maher turned it into a bonfire on HBO. No coordination, no collusion, just two guys arriving at the same punchline. If hypocrisy had an Olympics, Sonny Hostin would be up there grabbing gold, a luxury brand endorsement, and a publishing deal about resilience in the face of silence.
What about The View? It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth and when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're an honest scum.
Let's begin with Greg Gutfeld, who treats every show like it's stand-up night at a libertarian dive bar. He practically beamed through a segment that screamed "told ya so," without actually needing to say it, because when your whole persona is dunking on smug progressive pundits, and one of them ends up linked to a fraud case big enough to fund a moon landing, you don't just get a win, you get a meme-worthy jackpot.
To remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill Maher, who has been the standard bearer for liberalism and in many ways leftism until the woke went bananas in this last decade, but for decades, that's what this guy has represented in America. I want you to note the tone they all talk with him. I want you to look at Sonny Hostin's body language and the way they look at him and everything else, just because he is a lefty who hasn't gone completely bananas.
Gutfeld didn't have to drop names or flash neon arrows. He simply painted a masterpiece of moral irony. Picture a TV host, perched atop a soapbox as tall as her ego, preaching ethics to the masses, only to tumble headfirst into a pit labeled federal indictment. He didn't just mock Sonny, he roasted the persona she sold. The self-appointed ethics czar of The View suddenly turned into a cautionary meme, and Gutfeld, ever the showman, turned it into must-watch karma. The real kicker, the show's eerie silence. The scandal was loud, but the coverage was a whisper exactly. The kind of double standard Gutfeld underlined, highlighted, and probably laminated.
You look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sonny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart. And I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well. And so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insane.
Meanwhile, over on HBO, Maher was nursing a scotch and firing off philosophical grenades. While Gutfeld went for the gut, Maher opted for the cortex. He didn't crack jokes, he gave a roast in the form of a masterclass. Zoomed out, big picture. Surgical precision. He went after the elite bubble, the performative outrage. The sudden hush when one of their own ends up in hot water. Sonny, longtime corruption critic, now sitting in the same mess she usually torches with glee. And Maher? He didn't need jokes. The hypocrisy lit itself on fire, he just showed up with the matches.
The term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words
and so
migrate.
why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want.
Okay.
Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left? But don't tell me the left
Or maybe the super far right.
Well, he's talking about the left. Well, then
okay, but we talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super.
He said what everyone was thinking, but no mainstream outlet dared admit, because if the scandal had landed on a conservative's doorstep, The View would have gone full soap opera, swelling music, furrowed brows, maybe even a strategically timed tear. Instead, stiff chuckles and strained grins. Sonny could have shown up in cuffs, and the crew would have acted like she spilled coffee. Not credibility. The silence didn't just echo, it tapped out a full distress signal in Morse. Maher's brilliance was in exposing the selective outrage machine for what it is. He didn't bother with the legal minutiae, he zoomed in on the narrative collapse. This wasn't about courtrooms. It was about vanished ethics and a moral high ground that suddenly became a sinkhole. The timing. Perfect. To commentators from opposite galaxies, both chose the same week to yank back the curtain and point at the broken wizardry of televised virtue. One laughed, one sighed. Both exposed the performance. Sonny stayed quiet. No side eye, no vague pivot. The View, usually surgical with other people's scandals, suddenly developed a group case of amnesia. It was like a murder mystery podcast skipping the crime. Because the suspect once brought good wine to brunch. The silence wasn't a shield, it was a megaphone for the takedown.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sonny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from...
Let's unpack this fraud case nobody's unpacking. Sonny Hostin's husband, Emmanuel, is allegedly tangled up in a scheme filled with phantom medical bills, sketchy shell companies, and enough shady transactions to embarrass even Bernie Madoff's ghost. We're talking enough cash to start a new country, maybe call it Ironic's. And yet somehow, The View decided this wasn't segment worthy. This wasn't a parking fine, it was a credibility demolition with financial fireworks. And who stepped up? Gutfeld and Maher, two men who wouldn't share a pizza, much less a punchline. But when both sides of the aisle start roasting, it's no longer satire, it's sentencing. The beauty here, no collusion, no notes passed. Just two predators circling the same wounded hypocrisy. Gutfeld played it like a stand-up gig, firing sarcasm like confetti. Maher came in it like a disappointed professor. But both brutal. Sonny's curated persona, toast.
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but
It's
isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
There is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think that's not actually, you're right, the name.
Meanwhile, Maher leaned back like a judge in chambers, glass raised, eyebrow cocked, and issued a monologue so lethal it didn't need jokes. It wasn't comedy. It was courtroom theater. And still silence. Not from the audience, they were paying attention. No, it was Sonny and her chorus of daytime defenders who suddenly forgot how microphones work. That silence, it proved the point. When the self-righteous stumble, they don't stumble, they vanish. But viewers aren't blind. They see what's said and what's conveniently skipped. This wasn't just a gloss over. It was a full ghosting, ignored like a boomer uncle's meme rant. And every beat of avoidance gave Maher and Gutfeld more to work with. The View, self-declared moral compass, folded like a clearance sale lawn chair. This became less about fraud and more about what happens when the outrage machine hits pause. Because the scandals got a familiar face, the ethical outrage vanished, replaced by awkward giggles and wardrobe compliments. And the audience, they noticed.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright.
When your brand is being the beacon of televised virtue, and suddenly your spouse is headlining a financial scandal, the bare minimum is acknowledgement. Instead, we got airbrushed denial, blank stares, and blush retouches, so the stage sat empty until Gutfeld turned it into a dance floor, celebrating like he won the jackpot of hypocrisy, while Maher strolled on and deconstructed Sunny's moral fortress with a smirk and a sledgehammer made of receipts. And just when you think the circus couldn't get another ring, in comes the concept of elite immunity that's shiny. Pretend badge media figures flash when moral judgment's convenient, but when the lights flip, the badge disappears, the fire fizzles, and all you hear is privileged humming in the background. Let's pan out. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a double standard in full HD. Sunny, ever ready to scold from her pedestal, sidestepped the kind of scandal that'd send any other pundit into PR triage mode. But hey, elite problems call for elite levels of denial.
Maher calls her a 10. I mean, how dare she objectify a woman with a sexist rating system, but it's such a typical thing from a 1.5.
Well said.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
And now it gets delicious. Trust in media isn't just eroding, it's pirouetting on black ice. Enter Sunny with a blowtorch, taking out what little credibility was left. While she played mute, the audience played detective. Because in 2025, screenshots live forever, and Google's memory is a steel trap. You can't dish judgment like buffet sushi all week and then act shocked when your own kitchen catches fire. That's not poise, it's delusion. And The View. Every gasp, every eyebrow raise, every dramatic "can you believe" now comes with a faint echo of "girl, we know." The soapbox is scorched, the throne cracked like reality show confidentiality agreements. Because when Greg and Bill Timen, who'd rather argue about the color of the sky, both land on you as the punchline. It's not partisan, it's poetic. This wasn't an attack. It was art. A bipartisan drag so well executed it should hang in a museum next to a plaque reading, "Here lies media integrity, rip."